ياسين
ويح قلبي أصحى ونبي أهل
الجاسين بمسلك طريقة التقى الكيسين على محي الخطايا ياسين
حب المصطفى من حسنه
التحسين
مدحوا
الباري في نون والضحى وياسين على محي
خطايا ياسين
والله بحضور صلوا يا جاسين على محي الخطايا ياسين.
Praise singers and chanters in Sudan. Assalamu alaikum, dear audience. It is my great pleasure welcoming you in this new part of our series of introducing Sudanese prophetic Madih in general. So now, here I would like sharing you a very important element that have played very magnificent role in the spread of the Prophet Sirah in our presence. The influential praise singers and chanters that I try to take the earliest founders of this art in our coming series of documentaries, which in fact will conclude the area of prophetic Madih poetry in Sudan. So once again, it is my great pleasure welcoming you to this important part of our documentaries on Sudanese Sufism in general and prophetic Madih in particular. However, in today's episode, we are going to talk about a really special group of people, the Madihun, the praise singers, and the chanters, and Munshidun. They have a fascinating role in our history. They were voices that carried love for the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, into the hearts of the people. So, through their songs and poetry, they kept the Sirah alive, spreading the Prophet's story in a way that touched the everyday lives of communities across Sudan. And what I would like to do, dear audience, in our starting point to this important element, I'm referring here to the praise singers and chanters. Just what I would like to do in this episode is just to make an introduction about praise singers and chanters' history contributions in the country. And as a great scholar, the late Abdullah Sheikh al-Bashir, the spread of Islam in Sudan wasn't taken place through battles or force. It was through the efforts of the Sufis, the jurists, fuqaha, the Quran memorizers, and the praise singers. According to Sheikh Abdullah al-Bashir, these groups laid the foundations for the flourishing of Islam by peaceful means. They instilled belief in the hearts of indigenous communities, gently drawing them into the fold of Islam and affecting a profound transformation in their lives. In so doing, they prepared the groundwork for the nucleus of the first Islamic state in the Sudan. Their mission was not driven by the sword, nor by coercion or worldly power, but by confidence, faith, sincerity, and unwavering devotion to God. Through this approach, they succeeded in bringing about sweeping cultural and spiritual changes. Lifestyles were reshaped, discord was replaced by consensus, and heedlessness gave way to remembrance of God. This peaceful yet radical transformation culminated in the establishment of the Islamic State of Sinnar. In turn, this state became a vibrant center of learning, nurturing generations of Islamic scholars, poets, and students who contributed richly to the religious, spiritual, intellectual, and cultural life of the Sudanese. So, just here, what I would like to remind you, dear audience, that according to the latest scholar, Sheikh Abdullah al-Bashir, that Sufis, spiritual guides, memorizers of the Quran, jurists or fuqaha, and finally praise singers and chanters have played the magnificent role in the spread of the Islamic teachings across time in Sudan. Within this broader historical framework, the role of the praise singer emerges as a particularly effective. Far more than entertainers, these figures function as transmitters of religious devotion, barriers of cultural memory, and catalysts of communal solidarity. Their ambivalent status is straddling the walls of performance and piety invites us to reconsider their significance, not only in Sudanese history but also in the wider story of Islam spread across Africa. So in this episode, as I told the audience, we try to recognize and I try to introduce part of their efforts that have been played. At the same time, the most notable and prominent figures among those praise singers and chanters, starting with the founders of this art in Sudan. Dear audience, I would like to reminding you that I'm presenting praise singers and chanters in Sudan. And just here we have our introductory episode in which I try to trace the contribution the most influential praise singers and chanters in Sudan. However, in Sudan, the Sufi chanters and praise singers known as the Madihun and Munshidun have always played a role far greater than just reciting poetry or leading chants. Their presence carried weight, their voices carried meaning, and their gatherings shaped the very fabric of Sudanese religious, cultural, and social life. Religiously, the Madihun and the chanters became teachers of the people. Through their performance, they disseminated the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, the stories of his birth, his noble character, his miracles, and his mercy, in a way that ordinary men and women could grasp and feel. For many who could not read or access books, the gatherings of praise singers and chanters were living classrooms. In the rhythm of their verses, the teachings of Islam came alive, making the Prophet's message something not only studied, but sung and remembered. Spiritually, they opened doors of presence and longing. Their chants and melodies in dhikr circles lifted the heart above its worries, awakening love for the Prophet ﷺ and stirring longing for Allah. They gave sound to devotion and emotion, teaching people not only what to believe, but how to feel their faith. In their voices, communities experience the sweetness of love, humility, and surrender. Culturally, the Madihun and the chanters perceive Sudan's poetic and musical heritage. Their art blended Quranic imagery with the rhythm of Nubia, the melodies of the Nile, and the vernacular of the people. In their verses, the sacred and the local became one. Their poems became inseparable from Sudanese identity, recited at weddings, festivals, village gatherings, and especially during the Mawlid celebrations, when the entire community would come together, united in joy and remembrance of the Prophet's birth. Socially, they were unifiers. I'm referring here, by the way, to the praise singers and chanters. So they have their social role that they played. So they act as unifiers socially. Their circles gathered everyone. The session and the Sufi zikr and even the audition or sama' sessions and gathering, by the way, has played its greatest role in creating social unity and social cohesion among the locals and among the community. So the young, you find the young and the old, the schooler and the farmer, men and women, all sitting in the same space, moved by the same words. In times of hardship, their chants brought solace. In times of festivity, they deepened gratitude. They wove bonds of solidarity, making the praise of the Prophet ﷺ not only a personal act of devotion, but a shared language of community. And beyond all this, The praise singers and chanters were the roving ambassadors of Sudanese Islam. They wandered from village to village, town to town, their tongues carrying verses that were not more than poetry. They were the transmitters of fragrance, the fragrance of the Prophet Sirah, which they spread like perfume upon the hearts of those who listened. Through them, people inhaled the Prophet's mercy, his humility, his courage, and his greatness. They became, so here I'm referring to the singers and chanters, they became vessels of light, carrying the Prophet stories, the Prophet's biography into every corner of the land, until the love of Prophet Muhammad was no longer confined to the books of scholars, but became a living flame in the soul of people. Thus, the singers and chanters were never mere performers. They were teachers, healers, historians, poets, ambassadors, and guides. They safeguarded the faith, nourished the spirit, enriched the culture, and strengthened the bonds of society, ensuring that the love of the Prophet ﷺ flowed through every generation of Sudanese people. In the history of Sudanese Sufism, few figures have left a deeper imprint than the Madih and Munshidun, the chanters, praise singers, and eulogists who carry the love of the Prophet ﷺ upon their tongues. So, as I told, in the history of the Sudanese Sufism, we find that influential figures, have left a deeper imprint in the Sudanese local societies. They have left this deeper imprint through their tongue, and as I told, they are represented the disseminators of the Prophet Sirah. They were not simply entertainers or reciters, they were teachers of faith, carriers of memory, and transmitters of the Prophet fragrance through verse and song. However, among the most prominent and eminent praise singers and chanters, who in fact representing different schools of thought, I'm referring here just to those figures, by the way, and throughout history, they are representative to different Sudanese Sufi turuq. They are not belong to only one tariqa, rather they are belong to different Sufi orders. So they have emerged to hail the arts of Madih throughout the prophetic and Sufi Madih history in Sudan. The most well-known who receive and pass down this art over the ages, this art and tradition, from cassettes to digital tools. Among the most well-known of these figures, just I would like to start with the most influential and prominent figures of the Sudanese praise singers and chanters. And in fact, we started with Sheikh Bashir al-Hadari, who considered the father of this art. So here we have Sheikh Bashir al-Hadari, and then we have Ahmed Umar al-Qadir, حاجة توم من الله الشريف زين العابدين أبو ضرس الشيخ مصطفى إسماعيل. And then we have also الشريف زين العابدين حاج البدري الشيخ اللي من القرشي الشيخ علي بخيت الشاعر الشيخ سمان أحمد عالم الشيخ المبارك الشيخ يوسف قبوجة الشيخ المريود محمد حسين الشيخ علي الهادي الشيخ يوسف محمد اللمين الشيخ عبد الله محمد عثمان. And finally we have الشيخ إسماعيل محمد علي. So this is by the way this is the most influential most significant Sudanese praise singers and chanters throughout history, just starting from the founder of this art Sheikh al-Bashir al-Hadari, and we conclude with Sheikh Ismail Muhammad Ali. Most of them, by the way, have passed away. Since their biography will be presented, each one of them will be presented in a separate recording. So what I would like to say, this is, as I told, the most prominent and eminent and significant Sudanese praise singers and chanters throughout history since the start of praise singing and chanting in Sudan. From another side, the legacy of Madih in Sudan was not carried by individuals alone, for entire bands became schools of praise, where the art and devotion were passed down through bloodlines like devotion to the art and devotion of the tradition of praise singing, by the way, were passed through bloodlines like sacred trust. Among them, here we have this notable family, the family of Haj al-Mahi. And by the way, here we have Awlad Haj al-Mahi, as we are going to take them also in a separate episode. The sons of great poet Haj al-Mahi, whose voices became inseparable from the very history of Sudanese Madih. In addition to Awlad Haj al-Mahi, also we have Awlad al-Kasawi, carried forward the legacy of their grandfather Abu Kasawi, ensuring that his style and his spirit of devotion would not fade. And then we have the noted Awlad al-Burai, who were followers and students to the renowned poet Sheikh Abdul Rahim al-Burai, Sheikh Muhammad Wagi Allah. These groups stand as perhaps the most widely recognized, their name forever tied to the soul of Sudanese prophetic praise. So if we would like to comment on the two notions, the notion of praise singers and chanters, it has been stated that praise singers are performers who use poetry or song to praise a person, often a leader, senate, or praising the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They typically work in public or ceremonial settings, and what distinguish and features of this group, we would like to say that praise singing is rooted in oral traditions in Sudan and in Africa in general, and in some parts of Arabia. So in Sudanese Arabic, such figures are sometimes called Madihun, al-Madihun, from the root word Madh. Madh, a verb. Madaha, it is a verb. Yamdah, it is a verb. Madaha and Yamdah, a verb, indicate to praise someone. That means stating his his excellent attributes. But at the same time, praising in English can also include non-religious praise. And what regards chanters, al-munshidun, from to chant. Chanters are those who recite or sing sacred or poetic texts in rhythmic tunes, often in a ritual or ceremonial setting. Use melodic intonation rather than full musical performance. Typically parts of Sufi gatherings, Sufi circle of dhikr, or Mawlid celebrations. The focus is on the spiritual elevation and devotional experience. May chant qasidas, devotional poems. Also, a chanter may chant or read or recite Quran or dhikr phrases, often accompanied by call and response style or choral refrains. In a Sufi Hadra, Sufi circle of dhikr, a group of chanters may repeat names of God or poetic lines praising the Prophet ﷺ, often with body movement and drum beats. But what I would like to say is that, as experience have shown, chanters in Sudanese Sufi circle of dhikr, or even in audition session, we find them never utilize tools, drums or tambourine. They use their voice, by the way. And as we are going to take an example, by the way, they repeated a phrase in praise of the Prophet ﷺ, or in praise of a saint or spiritual guide. You find, or even they may repeat a phrase that incites the murids and followers to strive in the Sufi path. So no tambourine use, no drum use with chanters. Just they utilize their voice to the heat. So singers, chanters are all roles. They have their own roles that involve vocal performance to honor individuals, but they differ in focus and context. Chanters primarily recite or chant often sacred or historical texts, whereas praise singers focus on praising the virtue and deeds of a person, with praise singers often performing celebrity song.
يحركنا ذكر الأحاديث عنكم ولولا هواكم في الحجا ما تحركنا ولولا معانيكم تراها قلوبنا إذا نحن أيقاظ وفي النوم إن غبنا وقل للذي ينهى عن الوجد أهله إذا لم تذق معنا شراب الهوى دعنا إذا لم تذق ما ذاقت الناس في الهوى فبالله يا خالي الحشا لا تعنفنا إذا لم تذق ما ذاقت الناس في الهوى فبالله يا خالي الحشا لا تعنفنا فإنا إذا طبنا وطابت نفوسنا وخامرنا خمر الغرام تهتكنا إذا اهتزت الأرواح شوقا إذا اهتزت الأرواح شوقا إلى اللقاء نعم ترقص الأشباح يا جاهل المعنى وصن سرنا في سكرنا عن حسودنا وإن أنكرت عيناك.
The audience, if you would like to give further clarification and seeking distinction, the differences between the two terms, Madih, that is praise singer, and Munshid, chanter, we may say that the word Madih is broader and more comprehensive. One may affirm that every Madih is a Munshid, but not every Munshid is a Madih, praise singer. Chanting in Shad itself is of two kinds, individual chanting and collective chanting. The latter be formed in the form of a choral ensemble. A choral ensemble. The Madih or praise singer, as previously indicated, is more complete. At times he performs with the tambourine. At other times he chants without accompaniment, since chanting is traditionally performed without instruments. And at other times he recites the mystical poems of the Sufi masters. In nearly every Sufi masjid there are those who specialize either in chanting or in reciting the poems of the Sanads. Yet, the Madih is the one who unites all the arts of prophetic and Sufi praise. Among the most renowned pioneers of chanting were Sheikh Abdul Wahab al-Khamjan, Muhammad Wadnimeri al-Watari, and Sheikh As-Sammani Ahmad Halim. In later generations appear the great masters of Madih, such as Sheikh Bashir al-Hadari, Sheikh Ali al-Shair, Sheikh al-Lamin al-Ghurashi, all of whom combined both Madih and Inshad, singing and chanting. From this same circle also emerged Sheikh Abdullah al-Hibr and Sheikh Ismail Muhammad Ali, who excelled both as praise singers and as chanters at the same time. In more recent years, the late Sheikh Abdul Salam Muhammad Ali rose to prominence as one of the finest and most celebrated voices in Inshad chanting. Within today's religious and Sufi circles, a young generation of chanters has appeared, including Muhammad Bashir Hashim and Barham Abdul Rahman, who specializes in the poems of Sheikh Ibrahim Inyas al-Kawlahi. For further information on Madih and Inshad, one may consult the forthcoming work of Sheikh Amir Abu Grun, اللطائف الأدبية في المدايح النبوية, book under publication by Sheikh Amir Abu Grun.
نفسا وصحرا ونسبة وعلما وآدابا وأتقى وأخشع فقد كان خير الخلق فخما مفخما وذو هيبة والمشي فيه تقلع وأزهر لون عضعج العين تزدري بعين محا عند الخميلة ترتع وأنجل عين أهدب الشفر واسع جبين رسول الله والخلق أوسع أزج وأقنى وجه طه مدور ولحيته كثى وصدر موسع ومنكبه أعظم به وعظامه ضخام ورب لقد طه المرفع كذا عضد عبل وعبل ذراؤه مرحب راحات والأنوار تلمع وسائل أطراف وغير مشذبين عظيم كراديس من الخلق أرفع وأشنب ثغر إن تبسم ينجلي كحب غمام عولك البرق يلمع وهامته عزمى لشعر ترجل وخافض طرف ساكت فهو يخشع وأحزانه موصولة بتفكر وإن قال الفصل والحق يرجع وينظر لحظا وهو للعرض غالبا يسوق سحابا والملائك تتبع وجيد رسول الله يشبه دمية إذا فرق الأشعار يبدو ويلمع وكاللؤلؤ المكنون والمسك عرقه فمثل رسول الله لم يحز مجمع وأحلم خلق الله أعدل خلقه من الناس أسخى بل من الناس أشجع ويخدم للأهلين يخصف نعله ويقطع لحما وهو للثوب يرقع أشد حياء وهو يأتي لمن دعا ويغضب للمولى إلى الحق يرجع ولم يتورع عن حلال ولو حلا ولم تلفه في غالب الوقت يشبع ويركب أحيانا جوادا ومرة حمارا وحينا راجلا يتقلع كذلك في الملبوس والطيب فائح يجالس أقواما والأصوات ترفع ويمزه أحيانا يولف مرة وما هاب ملكا قط فالشان أرفع وما حقر المسكين يدعو جميعهم وبالله مولى الخلق ذا الخلق يجمع وأكرمه المولى أجل كرامة وخصصه من للخلائق ينفع عليه صلاة الله ما زر شارق وغنت حمامات على الغصن تسجع وما رد ضيم الدحر عن ساحة الذي يزخرف أمداحا ويشدو ويسجع وآل وأصحاب مدى قول شيق أبرق بدا نحو المرابع يلمع عليك صلاة الله ثم سلامه أحبك حبا لا يزال إلى الرمس عليك صلاة الله ثم سلامه وتطرد أشكول اللئين من القدس